Welcome back. A 3-year-old boy has died as a result of a stabbing incident in Kimmage last night, which has also left a woman in serious condition in St James's Hospital. Joining us on the line now to tell us more is Stephen Breen, crime editor for the Irish Sun. Good morning, Stephen. Thank you for taking our call. What details can you tell us?
Well, so far, last night the alarm was raised in Kimmage around 7 o'clock where a woman made a 999 call. Gardaí responded to the 999 call to the Riverside apartment block in Kimmage in South Dublin. Inside the apartment, they were met with an absolutely horrendous scene, and they recovered the body of a 3-year-old boy who was lying on the couch in a room in the house. He had suffered multiple stab wounds to his upper chest. They also found a woman in the house as well, believed to be his mother. She had also suffered a apparent stab wound, and she was then brought to St James's Hospital, where she remains today. She's in a serious condition, but is expected to pull through.
Have the Gardaí issued a statement about lines of inquiry? Is there a definite line of inquiry? Are they looking for third parties?
Yes, they are following a definite line of inquiry, but they are keeping an open mind on the case. I mean, this really is a shocking case. They had a case conference last night. They're having one this morning. And they are conducting house-to-house inquiries in the area, and I suppose they're just trying to piece together, how such a terrible event could unfold. They are keeping an open mind, as I said, and as investigations continue, they'll try and establish and uncover what exactly happened here and what led to a 3-year-old boy losing their life in such a tragic circumstance. OK, Stephen, listen, thank you for taking our call, and we'll leave it at that, and obviously more details will emerge in the coming days. That's Stephen Breen, who's the Irish Sun crime editor. Now joining us to discuss other stories making the headlines this morning, Ellen Gunning from the Irish Academy of Public Relations and Conor Pope from the Irish Times. Good morning to you both. Moving to another story featured in the papers this morning as a result of a survey, Ellen, and the top line of it basically is that 40% of the total adult homeless population in Ireland are women. This is according to a study published today. Now, it's a European-wide study, and we're not top of the league, we're also not worst of the league, but there's a couple of things. I think a lot of people would be surprised by that, but then when you think about it, it's an equal opportunities world in that sense. Yeah. Why would it not be 40-50% men, women? But the services specifically seem to be failing to respond adequately to the needs of women. And also it would appear that women do not trust the services.
Yeah, there are huge
So there's
issues
a distinct
here.
Possibility of underreportage here.
There are huge issues here. The statistic that jumped out to me most was that 47% of homeless people in Dublin are women, and 2/3 of those are heads of family. So these are women with young children. So it's a societal change. If you go back 20 years, it was mostly older men who were seen to be homeless. If you looked maybe 10 years ago, it was older and younger men. Now you've got 50% of these people who are homeless are women with young children. So society has changed. It seems like the services haven't kept up. So they don't seem to have sufficient services for women with families. The other thing that was quite surprising for me was that the main two reasons why women become homeless. One was that they've lost private rental income, or private rented income, and the second was that they had suffered domestic violence. So there are huge issues here for the state. There should be an easier way for women who are homeless to find housing. There should be for men as well. But they don't seem to trust the services either. They feel that they don't listen to them. And that's another issue.
That was the thing that jumped out at me, Conor, that traditionally the social services and caring services tend to be populated and staffed by higher numbers of women. So you would have expected maybe not a more sympathetic response, but you would have felt that women would have felt more comfortable in that situation rather than less.
Yeah, but as Alan says, it is a societal shift, and it's almost like an oil tanker turning. These things take a long time to turn, and since the foundation of the state, the vast majority of people who've found themselves homeless have been male. They have been either older men or younger men, and the shift has only been reported in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. So the people working within the homeless services are probably still themselves as human beings struggling to come to terms with that shift. But I do think, just to put the numbers into context, it's kind of 47% women in Dublin, closer to 40% nationwide. And then in a European context, the numbers would be much closer to 30% women, 70% men, or in some Nordic countries, it's 20% women and 80% men. But apart from the obvious problems of women finding themselves abandoned by the state and on the streets, particularly if they have young children, there is that depressing reality that there's just an assumption that homelessness is a male preserve and that men are the people who are going to suffer homelessness. And that's not right either, because, it needs to be addressed that there is, it's not fair that we just assume that homelessness is a problem that affects men, and when we see that there's a balance, and the balance is probably the wrong word to be using in a context like this, but when we see that the gender balance is being addressed, we express shock that more women are being made homeless, whereas what we should be doing is we should be trying to address the homelessness situation irrespective of gender.
There is also a presumption that apart from it being a male problem, that those men are suffering from addiction problems, psychiatric problems, have fallen through the cracks for one reason or other. There's sociological, possibly psychological reasons for it. In this instance, these women are, if you want to use that expression of falling through the cracks, not because of that, but because of abuse and neglect or fear or desperation.
And it's a different issue. Society
Totally different.
needs to deal with that as an issue, and it needs to look at, these are women who are not, I'm not saying that men choose to be homeless, but these are women who have homelessness almost inflicted upon them. It seems at very short notice, because if you move because of either domestic violence or you can no longer afford to pay the rent because somebody has hiked it up, it's a very fast move, and you've got children. So society needs to, or the services need to look at, how do you house not only single men, because there don't seem to be as many men with children, but single women who are now heads of household with children.
Just very quickly, just to finish that off, this survey cautions that family hubs are not an appropriate, acceptable or sustainable solution. So why are we even considering them in the first place?
Absolutely.
Conor, I just need to move on to the final third one, and this is something that you wouldn't have thought it was going to be a problem, but it obviously is going to be a problem. Rural Ireland is losing another lifeline. 50% of GPs set to retire in the next couple of years. 10 years ago, a position in a rural practice would have attracted about 30 applicants. Now they're lucky if they get 5, and in a lot of cases they're not getting any.
Yeah, it's a very, very depressing reality, because we saw only yesterday that there was a big survey done amongst people who were suffering from type 2 diabetes, and it was revealed, and it's hardly a great reveal, that people who have continuity of care with their GPs, if they have diabetes, perform much better than people who rely on hospitals. Community care, GPs are an absolutely essential service, not just in rural Ireland but across the entire state. And if we could get that right, we would take a huge amount of pressure off our hospitals, and we would improve the entire medical system that's available in this country. Yet we're not capable of getting that right, because what happened is, after the crash in 2008, a huge amount of funding that was available to GPs, and it is expensive to set up a GP practice anywhere. It costs a huge amount of money. It's not like it used to be, where
insurance alone is crippling.
Where a GP could just qualify as a GP, open his front door and bring people into his living room. That's not how it works anymore. It costs a huge amount of money. The money available to GPs was cut dramatically after the crash, and that money hasn't been reinstated, and there is no plans to reinstate it. So it's almost like the government and the state is utterly blinkered, and they're blind to the fact that what we need to do to fix our healthcare system, and it is definitely fractured, is we need to start with primary care, and we need to start with GP care. And unless they incentivise and encourage more GPs to enter service to serve communities across the country, we're going to be in a very, very bad way in 7 or 10 years' time.
We're talking about societal change with regard to the last item. This is a huge societal change as well, Ellen, because the professions, lawyers, doctors, engineers, etc., they were always oversubscribed in terms of people's career choices. Now people don't want to become doctors, so what's gone wrong?
But the fascinating societal change here, I think, is that the IMO has 2 completely different problems. One, they're saying that individual doctors, small practices, people don't want to go into those practices because it's long hours, it's waking you up in the middle of the night to look after people. We can all understand that. We've all moved away from wanting to work 24, needing to work 24 hours a day. But they have a problem with the larger practices in your rural areas as well. They can't get people to apply. Now, that's not about long hours. That's about living in a rural community. So there are 2 different issues. It seems to be that we've a shortage of doctors. We have doctors who don't want to work unreasonable hours, which is fine. But we also have doctors who simply don't want to work in rural areas. And that's a huge issue for the country.
OK, well, we're going to have to leave it. I'm just wondering whether the Latin American model might be something that we'd consider here. It's a horrendously expensive profession to be trained in. get the state to fund it, and those people who graduate as doctors then give the state back 5 years of service. It works perfectly well in Mexico and
It works
in London.
brilliantly.
Absolutely.
It works brilliantly.
And a great way to train young doctors on the ground, from the ground up.
It's just why it'll never happen.
Probably.
Thank you both very much indeed. Let us know your thoughts on any of these topics. Actually, are you in an area where you now no longer have a doctor, or where you have to go to the next parish or possibly even the next county to get your medical care or your general practice? Any comments, you send them to AM, you follow us, text AM 53121, email rndm@tv3.ie, Facebook or tweet us at rndmtv3. Plenty more to come on the programme. We'll be back after this break.